The human fleet moved silently through the void of space. Ships of all shapes and sizes glided past stars, their hulls reflecting distant suns. The commanders had long studied alien civilizations, but nothing prepared them for what awaited at the edge of the Carthon Cluster world that sent a distress signal unlike any other captain. Eric Voss stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, staring at the flickering holographic display. The signal came from a planet known to the galaxy as Zalara, home to the Zalari people. The transmission was weak, broken, almost desperate. Commander Lieutenant Mara said, her voice calm but tense, the Zalari message. It's not just a distress call. They're pleading for help. Arik rubbed his jaw. Pleading? What do they want from us? Mara hesitated. Strength, Captain, there. Weak. They can't defend themselves against the Orvac Empire. They're begging for someone to save them. Arik frowned. The humans had long prided themselves on their resilience, their adaptability, and their courage. But he had never imagined being called a savior by another species. The Orvac Empire was notorious across the galaxy for crushing weaker civilizations without mercy. The Zalari didn't stand a chance alone. Plot a course, Arik said finally. We're going to Zalara, full warp. As the fleet accelerated, the crew could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on them. Like each human knew what they were capable of, but nothing in history had prepared them for facing a species on the brink of extinction and the empire that hunted them. When they arrived, the Zalari homeworld was a planet of fragile beauty. Tall, crystalline towers rose above sprawling cities, and rivers of luminescent water wound through the landscape like veins of life, but the signs of decay were impossible to ignore. Many towers were cracked, and the streets below were eerily quiet. Smoke rose from scattered fires. The once vibrant light of the cities was dimmed by despair. A single shuttle approached the human fleet. Its hull was battered, and its engines sputtered with effort. The crew inside was frail, with translucent skin that glowed faintly. They were clearly not built for war. The shuttle docked with the Dauntless, and the hatch opened with a hiss. Standing inside was a being unlike any human had ever seen. Its limbs were long and thin, its eyes wide and shimmering with a strange inner light. On its shoulders hung ceremonial robes that were torn and dirty. It carried itself with dignity. Despite the obvious exhaustion, I am Eldarian, the being said, its voice quivering yet commanding. Leader of the Zalari. Humans, please hear my plea. Arik stepped forward. Leader, you're asking for our help? Eldarian's eyes glistened. Yes, our people. They are dying. The Orvac Empire takes what they wish, cannot fight. Them, we are weak, fragile, but you are strong. Humans, you survive where others fail. You endure, you adapt, you resist. Please, lend us your strength. The words hung in the air. The crew of the Dauntless exchanged glances. Humans were proud, yes, but they were cautious. No one offered strength lightly, and no one asked for it without reason. What do you want us to do? Arik asked carefully. Eldarian lowered his gaze, and the faint glow of his skin dimmed. Teach us, guide us, fight with us, our warriors. Cannot withstand the Orvac. Only your people can turn the tide. Arik studied him. There was desperation in Eldarian's eyes, yes, but also honesty. The Zalari were not exaggerating. Humans had survived countless wars, disasters, and impossible odds. They were strong because they adapted and persevered, even in situations that crushed other species. Take me to your council, Arik said finally. We need to understand your situation fully before any decisions are made. The shuttle ride to the Zalari capital was slow. Eldarian guided them through shattered streets and over broken bridges. Humans looked out the windows at the devastation. Fields that had once produced crops now lay barren. Factories stood silent, and the air was thick with a faint, sweet smoke that made breathing difficult even inside the shuttle. When they arrived, the council chamber was large and oval-shaped, with walls that seemed alive, shimmering like liquid crystal. Dozens of Zalar leaders waited, their expressions a mixture of hope and fear. Arik felt their eyes on him, studying, measuring, wondering what humans were capable of. Eldarion gestured. This is the heart of our people. We have little left to give, but we will give what we can. The council spoke in their melodic language, but Eldarion translated for the humans. They told of the Orvac Empire, fleets that destroyed planets, warriors that crushed civilizations, and technologies that outmatched anything the Zelari could produce. They had tried to fight, but each attempt ended in catastrophe. Their people were dying faster than they could recover. Arik listened carefully. He had faced powerful enemies before, but the Orvac Empire was different. They were methodical, ruthless, and terrifyingly efficient. Even so, humans were not known for retreating. The human mind thrived on challenges, and the human body endured what others could not. Your people, they are in danger, Eric said. But humans do not fight blindly. We need a plan. We need to understand your strengths and weaknesses. Only then can we act. Eldarion bowed his head. I understand. But know this, time is short. Every day, the Orvac grows stronger. Every day, my people suffer. Arik nodded. We'll do what we can, but you must be honest with us. No hiding. Details, no exaggeration. We need the truth. Eldarion's gaze met his. The truth? You will have it. But I fear even the truth may not be enough to save us, unless you fight with us. The humans spent the next hours surveying the city, observing the Zelari's technology, and learning about their limitations. The aliens were intelligent, yes, but their bodies were fragile, and their tactics relied on predictable patterns. A single mistake could cost them everything. Humans noticed weaknesses that the Zelari themselves had overlooked. Lieutenant Mara spoke quietly to Arik. Captain, they're not just weak. They lack adaptability. They do not improvise. They survive by rules, not by instinct. Arik frowned. Then they need more than guidance. They need examples. They need to see humans in action. To understand what true strength looks like, night fell over the Zelari capital. The twin moons cast silver light on the cracked towers, and the faint hum of energy fields filled the air. Eldarion returned to Eric's side, silent for a moment. You must know, he said softly. If you leave us, many will die. If you stay, there is hope. But the choice is yours, human. My people, they cannot survive without your strength. Arik looked out at the city, at the faint glows of life struggling to survive, and then back at Eldarion, felt a strange mixture of duty and curiosity. Humans thrived in impossible situations. They rose when others fell, and somehow he knew that the Zelari were about to witness something they had never imagined. Human courage, ingenuity, and resilience. Very well, Arik said finally. We will help. But know this. Strength is more than just muscles and weapons. It is strategy, patience, and endurance. If your people are willing to learn, then together, we may have a chance. Eldarion's eyes shone with relief. You have mercy, human, and with it hope. Thank you. As the humans prepared their first assessment missions, the Orvac Empire loomed in the darkness beyond the planet's orbit. Unaware that their prey had just called forth a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, for the Zelari hope had returned. For the humans, a new challenge awaited, one that would test every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of strength they possessed. And for both, the story of survival, courage, and unexpected heroes was only beginning. The next morning, the human fleet hovered above Zalara's largest city, its hulls gleaming in the pale light of the twin suns. Captain Arik Voss stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching the alien city below. Smoke still curled from broken towers, and distant sounds of machinery creaking under strain filled the air. Yet, somewhere amidst the ruin, hope was returning. Lieutenant Mara joined him. Captain, the Zelari are ready to show us their capabilities. They want to prove they're worth saving. Arik nodded. Let's see what they can do. Humans lead by example, not by words. Eldarion led them to a vast training complex. It was a strange structure, translucent floors, walls that shimmered with soft light, and hovering platforms that simulated battlefield conditions. Zelari soldiers moved with careful precision, their actions predictable yet graceful.
Their
technology was advanced in some ways but rigid. Our warriors are skilled, Eldarian said, but their bodies are weak. Their minds follow patterns too rigidly. Observe humans, and you will see why we need your guidance. Eric studied the soldiers. They moved in perfect formation, following strict commands. Each step was calculated, each maneuver precise but predictable. He had fought in countless wars, faced enemies who were clever and ruthless. But the Zelari's problem was clear. They could not think quickly under pressure. Bring them forward, Arik said. We'll test them. First exercise began. With humans and Zelari in simulated combat scenarios, alien drones, harmless but fast and relentless, zipped across the field. The Zelari soldiers moved carefully, following commands and maintaining formation. One by one, drones bypassed their defenses. Slipping through predictable patterns, a human soldier stepped forward, Sergeant Kale Rin. Known for his quick thinking and improvisation, he moved differently than the Zelari, darting between drones, reacting to threats as they appeared, and finding gaps no one else saw. Within minutes, he had disabled more drones than an entire squad of Zelari. The Zelari watched in awe. How? One whispered. Humans do not wait for instructions, Kale said, panting slightly. We act, adapt, and survive. Rules are guidelines, not chains. Eldarian's eyes widened. I have never seen such speed, such intuition. Arik clapped Kale on the shoulder. This is what your people need to learn. Strength is not just power. It is thought, courage, and adaptability. The more you rely on rigid patterns, the faster you fail. Over the next days, humans and Zelari trained together. The humans taught the Zelari how to improvise, to see openings, to change tactics on the fly, to trust instincts over rigid plans. Some Zelari were quick learners. Others struggled, their old habits hard to break. But with each exercise, the gap between species seemed to shrink in one simulation. The humans faced a scenario where Zelari soldiers were trapped on a crumbling bridge under fire from multiple drones. The humans acted instinctively, forming shields, using debris as cover, and creating distractions. The Zelari, initially frozen by panic, began copying their movements. Slowly, they learned to anticipate, adapt, and survive. By the end of the exercise, Eldarian approached Arik, bowing. Slightly? Your methods? They are revolutionary, my people. They have never seen such thinking in battle. Perhaps we can survive. Arik studied him carefully. Perhaps. But knowing is not enough. You must be willing to act without fear, to trust instincts, and to fight even when the outcome seems hopeless. Eldarian's eyes glimmered with determination. We will try. For our people, we will try. As the humans continued training the Zelari, they also studied the Orvac, Empire's movements. Scouts reported that Orvac patrols were growing bolder, sending fleets closer to Zalara's orbit. The humans analyzed the enemy patterns. They were strong but predictable in their arrogance. They relied heavily on brute force, assuming weaker species could never challenge them. Arik gathered the crew in the war room. The Orvac make one critical mistake, he said, pointing at the holographic map. They assume weakness is permanent. They underestimate the resourcefulness of those they attack. That's why they've never faced humans in force before. We'll exploit it. Lieutenant Mara frowned. You mean, strike against their fleet? Arik nodded. Not yet. First we need to prepare the Zelari. They need confidence, skills, and the ability to act on their own. We show them how to survive small encounters. Then we escalate. The first real test came sooner than expected. A small Orvac reconnaissance ship entered Zalara's orbit, scanning for vulnerabilities. The humans quickly organized a patrol, combining their technology with Zelari defenses. The Zelari were hesitant at first, unsure how to act without strict commands. Trust your instincts, Eric told them. Watch what humans do, then act. You will know what to do. The patrol engaged the Orvac ship. Humans darted around it, using energy pulses and tactical maneuvers. Zalari soldiers copied their movements, slowly gaining confidence. The Orvac ship fired repeatedly, underestimating the humans and their new allies. Within minutes, the smallest enemy vessel was disabled and forced to retreat. Eldarion could hardly believe it. They survived. My people, we won. Eric smiled slightly. Yes, but remember, one small victory does not win a war. You learn something far. More important, you can act, think, and survive. That is true strength. Over the following weeks, humans and Zalari worked together to improve defenses, create new strategies, and train in improvisation. Each day, the Zalari became more confident, more daring. They discovered abilities they had never used, like modifying weapons on the fly or using environmental advantages during combat. Humans noticed that even small lessons had a huge impact. The Zalari were learning not just to fight, but to adapt, to think for themselves, and to trust their own strength. The galaxy had always underestimated humans, and now it was showing the Zalari why. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the city, Eldarion approached Eric again. Captain, I must admit, your people are extraordinary, not just in battle, in spirit. My people have learned much in days we could not have achieved in years. Arik nodded. It is not about being extraordinary. It is about not giving up. Humans survive because we keep moving forward, no matter the odds. That is something anyone can learn if they try. Eldarion's eyes shone. Then perhaps together, we have a chance. Perhaps your strength, combined with our knowledge, can turn the tide. Arik allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps. But we will need more than courage. We will need creativity, speed, and boldness. And soon, the Orvac will test us harder than ever. The humans continued to study the Empire's patterns. They discovered a flaw in the Orvac's approach: overconfidence. The Orvac relied heavily on overwhelming firepower, assuming weaker species would never fight back creatively. They ignored small tactical errors, failing to anticipate improvisation. Arik gathered the Zalari Council. You see the enemy's mistake? They assume weakness is permanent. That is why they fail to adapt. You must learn the same lesson, humans. Use every day. Adapt, survive, and turn disadvantage into advantage. Eldarion's voice was steady. Then we will fight with cunning, as you show us. We will survive. Arik looked at the Zalari, then at his crew. Tomorrow, we'll conduct a full-scale simulation. Humans will lead, Zalari will follow, and we will see if you are ready to face the real threat. Only then can we strike against the Orvac fleet. That night, the humans and Zalari trained under the glow of the twin moons. The city, once silent and broken, was alive with movement and energy. Zalari soldiers practiced new tactics, improvising as humans taught them. The young ones ran drills, the elders adapted ancient strategies to new methods. And all learned that true strength was more than physical, it was in thinking, adapting, and daring to act. For the first time in generations, the Zalari felt hope. The humans had not just brought weapons or plans, they had brought a lesson in survival, courage, and the limitless potential of determination.
The stars outside the human fleet shimmered like distant fireflies, but for Captain Arik Voss and his crew, there was no beauty in the void tonight, only anticipation. The Orvac Empire had begun moving its patrols closer to Zalara, probing defenses, testing reactions, and assuming weakness. Humans and Zalari now stood at the brink, ready to face the first real battle together. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Arik leaned forward over the command console, reviewing the tactical display. Lieutenant Mara, status report on our strike. Teams. Patrols are in position, Captain, Mara replied. Zalari soldiers have been integrated into formations. They're nervous but following instructions. They've adapted surprisingly well to improvisation drills. Arik nodded. Good. Humans lead first. Zalari support. Stay alert. The Orvac underestimate us. They always do. Below them, the Zalari city shone faintly under the twin moons. Civilians had been evacuated to underground shelters and energy barriers shimmered along the perimeters. The once fragile people of Zalara now moved with purpose, their soldiers ready, their leaders determined. Even Eldarion had spent hours observing human training, absorbing techniques and strategies. You're ready, Arik said as Eldarion joined him on the bridge. Are you sure your people can hold under pressure? Eldarion's luminescent eyes glimmered with resolve. We will try, Captain. Your people have shown us strength we never imagined. Tonight we fight together. The first Orvac patrol emerged from hyperspace, massive black ships blotting out the stars behind them. Their engines roared and energy weapons hummed with a deadly resonance. The humans and Zalari watched as the enemy formation advanced, confident, slow, and predictable. Notice their pattern, Arik said. They assume weakness. That is their mistake. The humans led the Zalari strike squads into position. Ships darted in irregular patterns, using the shadows of nearby asteroids for cover. Human pilots maneuvered with uncanny precision, while Zalari vessels attempted to mirror their movements. For a moment, panic flickered among the aliens. They were not accustomed to this speed or unpredictability, but human example guided them. Hold formation. Trust your instincts, Arik shouted over the comms. Move where humans move. React to threats. Don't wait. The battle erupted. Orvac weapons fired in streams of blue energy. Human shields absorbed the initial blasts, while Zalari ships followed human maneuvers, dodging and counterattacking. Human ingenuity was evident in every move. One ship used an asteroid as a pivot to swing behind enemy lines, another feigned retreat to lure enemy vessels into a trap. Zalari soldiers began to understand. They saw how improvisation, unpredictability, and courage turned disadvantage into opportunity. For the first time, they were not just fighting, they were thinking like humans. One squadron, led by Sergeant Kale Rin, executed a daring maneuver. Using debris from a shattered moon, they created a temporary blind spot in the enemy's sensors, allowing them to strike the flank of the largest Orvac cruiser. The ship erupted in sparks and fire, forcing the remaining patrol to split focus. Eldarion watched in disbelief. Such tactics. I have never seen them. Arik replied calmly, though his eyes never left the display. This is human thinking. Strength without strategy is nothing. Observe, learn, adapt. On the ground, Zalari soldiers mirrored the space engagement in training simulations, practicing ambushes, flanking, and rapid improvisation. They fired their energy rifles with new techniques, coordinated attacks with human squads, and even devised minor tricks of their own. The humans encouraged them, correcting mistakes and praising ingenuity. Hours into the engagement, the Orvac patrol was in disarray. Their assumption of easy prey had failed. Human leadership and the newly trained Zalari tactics allowed the fleet to disable multiple vessels while avoiding major losses. The patrol began retreating, leaving behind debris and disabled ships. Eldarion floated in stunned silence. They were defeated. By humans and by us? Arik allowed himself a small smile. Yes, by you too. You learned. You adapted. That is the difference between survival and extinction. Back on the bridge of the Dauntless, Mara pointed at the tactical display. Captain, we've confirmed critical weaknesses in the Orvac fleet. They are slow to respond to unconventional attacks, over-rely on heavy firepower, and underestimate smaller, agile forces. Arik leaned over, scanning the data. Exactly as we suspected. We will use this. We will strike where they least expect it. And the Zalari will fight with confidence, knowing that improvisation and courage matter more than numbers. Eldarion, floating beside him, seemed almost childlike in his awe. Captain, my people, we have learned far more than I imagined. Humans, you are remarkable. Arik looked at him with quiet pride. It's not remarkable. It's survival. We do what we must to endure. And now you will endure too. if you continue to learn what we taught you. The battle over, humans and Zalari returned to the surface. The city, once quiet and fearful, now buzzed with cautious optimism. Civilians peeked from shelters, watching the remaining enemy ships retreat. Word spread quickly among the Zalari. Humans were not just warriors, they were symbols of hope. That evening, Eldarion addressed his people. Today we have seen what it means to fight as one. The humans, they do not fear the impossible. They do not wait for perfection. They act, they adapt, they endure. We must learn from them. We must continue to grow stronger, not just in body but in mind and spirit. The Zalari listened intently, their luminescent eyes wide with understanding. For the first time in generations, they felt capable of defending themselves, not just relying on luck or old strategies, but on courage, adaptability, and teamwork. While the Zalari celebrated small victories, Arik gathered his senior officers in the war room. The Orvac will not stop with one patrol. They will send larger fleets, stronger forces. But now we know how to fight them. Humans will lead the first real strike with Zalari supporting. If we plan correctly, we can hit critical targets and cripple their advance. Lieutenant Mara pointed to a map of the Orvac supply routes. There, the supply chain is weak. Their flagship relies on these carriers for reinforcements. If we target them, we can create chaos in their ranks. Arik nodded. Exactly. But it will not be easy. We must use every advantage humans have taught the Zalari. Surprise, adaptability, courage, and speed. One misstep, and this world could fall before us. The next morning, humans and Zalari gathered at the fleet staging area. The air was tense, a mix of excitement and apprehension. Zalari soldiers had learned much, but this was real combat. Their survival instincts, coupled with human guidance, would be tested for the first time against the Orvac Empire. Eldarion approached Arik. Captain, my people trust you. If you say we are ready, we will follow. Arik placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You are ready. Trust what you have learned. Trust yourselves. We fight together, and together we will survive. The ships moved into position, the humans leading, Zalari following. The Orvac fleet loomed ahead, unaware of the trap awaiting them. And as the stars stretched into streaks of light in the distance, Captain Arik knew one thing. Humans had shown the galaxy why they were a force unlike any other. And now, the Zalari were beginning to understand the true power of human ingenuity, courage, and resilience. The Zalari homeworld glimmered under the light of its twin suns, but the calm beauty was deceptive. Far above the planet, a massive fleet of Orvac ships materialized from hyperspace, blotting out the stars behind them. They had taken the bait, drawn by the audacious human-led strike on their patrols. This time they were coming with everything they had. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Captain Arik Voss watched the fleet assemble. This is it, he said, his voice calm but sharp. The Orvac are here to crush Zalara. Humans lead the defense, Zalari support. Everyone, stay focused, adapt, improvise, survive. Lieutenant Mara studied the display, concern evident in her eyes. They've brought capital ships, Captain. This isn't just a patrol. They're here to annihilate us. Arik's jaw tightened. Good. Then they will learn that underestimating humans and anyone we fight with is a mistake. Eldarion floated beside Arik, his eyes glowing with both fear and determination. Captain, my people are ready to fight, but they are not warriors like you. Will we survive? Arik placed a hand on his shoulder. We survive because we don't. Give up, Eldarion. Your people have learned, and tonight, they fight with more than just weapons. They fight with courage, strategy, and hope. Below, Zalari soldiers and civilians worked together to fortify the planet. Energy barriers flickered with power. Defensive cannons hummed to life, and evacuation routes moved thousands of civilians to safety. Humans assisted in every way, showing techniques to maximize efficiency, adapt defenses on the fly, and respond to unexpected threats. This is more than war, Arik said to his officers. This is survival, And survival requires thinking, not just strength. The first Orvac ships entered orbit, massive black vessels bristling with energy weapons. Humans and Zalari combined forces to form a defensive perimeter. Zalari ships followed human maneuvers, darting unpredictably to confuse enemy targeting systems. Humans used their ingenuity. One squadron created temporary energy mirages to hide smaller Zalari ships, while another used debris fields as cover to launch surprise attacks. Remember what you learned, Arik shouted over the comms. Adapt, think, survive. At first, the Zalari faltered under the Orvac barrage. Their defensive formations buckled, and some ships were hit. But humans reacted instantly, creating shields, improvising counterattacks, and showing the aliens how to recover from mistakes. Slowly, Zalari confidence grew. Sergeant Kale Rin led a daring flanking maneuver, taking a small squadron behind enemy lines. Move fast, adapt fast, he shouted. Use what you see, not what you're told. The Zalari copied him. They dodged enemy fire, disabled weapon systems, and even captured a small Orvac shuttle. Eldarion watched in astonishment. My people, they fight like humans. I never imagined this. Arik replied, eyes sharp. They fight because they have learned to think, Eldarion. Strength is useless without strategy and courage. On the planet's surface, civilians watched the sky as human and Zalari ships clashed with the Orvac fleet. Energy beams streaked across the atmosphere, and distant explosions lit the horizon. Zalari engineers adjusted defensive turrets, learned from human tactics, and improvised new ways to maximize damage. Humans on the ground were no less active. They coordinated strikes, repaired equipment on the fly, and used unconventional methods to outsmart the Orvac attackers. In every action, the difference between humans and other species was clear. Humans thrived under pressure, adapted instantly, and refused to accept defeat. Captain, Lieutenant Mara said, the Orvac flagship is moving closer. They're preparing a direct strike on the city core. Arik's eyes narrowed. Then we make them pay for underestimating us. All strike teams, focus on that ship. Use everything we've taught the Zalari. Surprise, improvisation, courage. The battle intensified. Humans led daring attacks, drawing enemy fire and exposing vulnerabilities. Zalari soldiers, inspired by their human allies, took bold actions, ambushing enemy ships, creating diversions, and exploiting openings humans created. A massive energy beam from the Orvac flagship struck near a Zalari cruiser. Humans and Zalari combined their efforts to redirect energy fields, saving the ship from destruction. Eldarion, floating above the battlefield, felt a surge of pride. They are learning to survive, Captain. My people, we may actually win. Arik watched carefully, directing squadrons, adjusting strategies, and reacting instantly to unexpected maneuvers by the enemy. Every human action was deliberate, calculated, and adaptable. Every Zalari success was a lesson learned from their guidance. Hours passed. The Orvac fleet, massive and confident, found themselves trapped by human ingenuity and Zalari adaptation. Strike teams disabled key weapon systems, cut off supply lines, and disrupted formations. The enemy was relentless, but humans remained, one step ahead, showing the Zalari that even the mightiest opponent could be outsmarted. Finally, the decisive moment came. The Orvac flagship aimed a devastating beam at Zalara's capital. Arik ordered the boldest maneuver yet. A human-led squadron would draw the flagship's fire while a hidden Zalari fleet, guided by human strategy, struck its weak points. Now, Arik shouted. Humans darted into the line of fire, dodging and weaving, drawing the flagship's attention. Zalari ships, previously hesitant, surged forward with precision, striking the massive vessel's unprotected engines. The flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion, sending debris scattering across space. The remaining Orvac ships panicked, retreating in disarray. Zalara was safe. For now. Eldarion floated above the battlefield, his glowing eyes wide with wonder. Captain, we did it, my people, we survived, we actually survived. Arik nodded, though his face remained calm. We survived because we adapted, because we fought smart, not just hard. Your people learned quickly, Eldarian. But the war is not over. The Orvac will return. Eldarian's voice was filled with gratitude. Captain, your people, humans, you have given us more than victory. You have given us hope. And with hope, perhaps we can truly rebuild. Arik allowed himself a small smile. Hope is only the beginning. Strength, courage, and adaptability. Those are the tools that will keep you alive. Humans didn't save you by fighting alone. We taught you to fight. And now, you have learned. That evening, the twin moons shone over Zalara, reflecting off the repaired towers and restored defenses. Humans and Zalari worked side by side, repairing damage, tending the wounded, and preparing for the next challenge. For the first time in generations, the Zalari felt they were not just victims, they were participants in their own survival. Eldarian addressed the gathered people, his voice strong and steady. Today we have faced the impossible. We have fought alongside humans and we have won. But more importantly, we have learned. Strength is not just in the body. Strength is in courage, in thinking, in adapting, and in refusing to give up. My people, we will survive, and we will grow stronger. The Zalari erupted in cheers, their luminescent bodies glowing with newfound confidence. Humans, quiet observers of the celebration, exchanged proud smiles. They had done more than fight. They had inspired, taught, and led by example. As the humans prepared to return to their ships for rest and resupply, Arik spoke with Eldarian. You've learned well, but remember, the Orvac are not done. They will return, stronger and more determined. And when they do, you must be ready to act, think, and fight with the courage you have now. Eldarian's eyes glimmered with determination. We will be ready, Captain. Your people, humans, you have changed everything for us. My people will not fail again. Arik nodded. Good, because the galaxy has a long memory, and humans, we never stop moving forward. Above the planet, the human fleet maintained its watch. The stars stretched into the void, silent witnesses to the courage, ingenuity, and unbreakable spirit of humanity. The Zalari had learned a powerful lesson. The Orvac Empire had retreated, but their shadow still lingered over Zalara. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The human fleet hovered above the planet, maintaining a watchful presence, while Zalari engineers and soldiers repaired damage and reinforced defenses. Captain Arik Voss stood on the bridge of the Dauntless observing the horizon. We've shown the Orvac what humans can do, he said quietly. But one victory doesn't end a war. They will return. Our job is to make sure Zalara is ready for them. Lieutenant Mara studied the tactical display. Captain, the Zalari are learning fast. Their confidence is growing. They're no longer just following instructions, they're thinking, improvising, and adapting. Arik nodded. Good. That's exactly what they need. Strength isn't enough. They must be able to survive on their own, even without us. Eldarian approached, his eyes glowing with gratitude. Captain, my people owe you more than words can express. You have not just saved us. You have shown us a way to survive, to grow, and to fight for our future. Arik allowed himself a small smile. You did the hard part, you learned. Humans didn't win this fight alone. We taught, guided, and inspired. But you became stronger because you chose to learn and act. Eldarian looked around at the city below where Zalari soldiers moved confidently. Civilians worked together and energy barriers pulsed with renewed strength. Then perhaps we can rebuild, and not just survive, but thrive. Arik nodded. That's the goal. Survival is the first step. Everything else comes after. Over the following weeks, humans worked with the Zalari to strengthen their defenses, improve technology, and train soldiers. They shared strategies, taught improvisation techniques, and even assisted in redesigning ships for greater maneuverability and efficiency. Scifi engineers marveled at human ingenuity. Simple adjustments, like altering shield configurations or rearranging weapon placements, made massive differences in performance. Scifi soldiers learned to think independently, making split-second decisions that could determine victory or defeat. The humans also taught the Scifi about resilience beyond battle. They showed them how to coordinate resources, manage civilian safety during crises, and maintain morale even when the odds were overwhelming. Slowly, the Scifi transformed from a fragile, desperate species into one capable of defending itself and inspiring others in the galaxy. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the city, Eldarion gathered the Scifi Council and the human leaders. "Today we are stronger than we were yesterday," he said. "We have learned from humans, our allies and teachers. But strength is not enough. We must use it wisely, with courage and creativity. If the Orvac return, we will be ready." Arik stood beside him. "Your people have done more than survive. They have become capable. Humans did not give you this strength. You earned it by learning, acting, and trusting yourselves. That is what makes a civilization resilient." The council members nodded, understanding that their world had changed. The Scifi were no longer victims waiting for rescue. They were participants in their own destiny. News of the Scifi transformation spread quickly across the galaxy. Other civilizations, previously skeptical or fearful of the Orvac Empire, began to view Scifi differently. A message reached Eldarion from a neighboring system. "Your people survived against impossible odds. Your strength inspires hope." Eldarion shared this with Arik. "Captain, humans, your influence has not only saved Scifi, but it has given hope to others as well. You have changed the galaxy, even without fighting every battle yourself." Arik smiled. "That's what humans do. We adapt, we endure, and we inspire. And sometimes that is more powerful than any weapon." Meanwhile, humans prepared to depart Scifi, knowing their presence could not remain forever. The fleet had completed repairs, supplies were replenished, and Scifi soldiers were fully trained in both combat and strategy. They were ready to face the Orvac Empire without relying entirely on human intervention. Before departure, Eldarion addressed the humans personally. "Captain Arik Voss, your people, humans, you have given us more than strength. You have given us hope, courage, and the ability to survive. If your people had not come, Scifi would have fallen. We will never forget this." Arik placed a hand on Eldarion's shoulder. "Your people will not forget either. Strength is nothing without courage and action. You have all shown both. Remember that, and no empire, no matter how mighty, can crush you." As the human fleet departed, Scifi's cities glimmered brighter than ever. The once fragile civilization had grown stronger, not just in technology or numbers, but in spirit. Humans had left a mark that could not be erased. The Scifi now understood why humans were feared, respected, and admired throughout the galaxy. Humans did not simply survive. They adapted, led, and inspired others to rise above their limits. Eldarion watched the departing fleet, his eyes reflecting the lights of distant stars. "Perhaps one day humans and Scifi will stand together again," he said softly. "If that day comes, the galaxy will witness something it has never seen before. Two species, strong, united, and unyielding." Months passed, and the Orvac Empire, weakened by their defeat, retreated to regroup. Scifi rebuilt under Eldarion's guidance, incorporating human strategies into their daily life. Soldiers continued training with improvisation drills. Engineers refined weapons and shields, and civilians embraced resilience and cooperation as central values. Other civilizations, inspired by Scifi's revival, began to reconsider their own survival strategies. Rumors spread, humans were a force unlike any other, a species whose strength lay not only in body, but in mind, courage, and the ability to inspire. Eldarion received messages from faraway worlds, acknowledging Scifi's transformation. Each time he thought of humans, of Captain Arik, Lieutenant Mara, and Sergeant Kale Rin. They had taught the Zilari something no machine, weapon, or technology could: the power of adaptation, determination, and hope. One evening, Eldarion stood on a high balcony overlooking the city, reflecting on everything that had happened. The twin moons shone on the towers and streets, illuminating the changes. He remembered the first time he had knelt before Arik, pleading for mercy and help. Now he stood tall, confident, and proud. "Humans," he whispered, "you have given us strength, not just to fight but to survive, not just to endure, but to thrive. Your people are truly remarkable." He turned to the council, glowing with renewed determination. "My people, our journey has just begun. With what we have learned, we will rebuild Zilara, defend our world, and ensure that no empire can ever crush us again. We will honor the humans who taught us this lesson, and we will pass it on to future generations." The council nodded. The Zilari were ready, not just as survivors, but as a civilization transformed, capable of facing the galaxy with courage and ingenuity. As the human fleet disappeared into the stars, Captain Arik Voss stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching the twin moons fade in the distance. "This is why humans exist," he said quietly. "To survive, to adapt, and to inspire, not just for ourselves, but for anyone willing to learn." Lieutenant Mara joined him, smiling. "Do you think they'll make it?" Arik's eyes remained fixed on Zilara. "They have what it takes. They just needed someone to show them the way. That is the difference humans make." Far away across the galaxy, civilizations began to whisper of a strange species whose courage, ingenuity, and indomitable spirit could turn the tide of impossible battles. The legend of humanity had grown, not through conquest alone, but through teaching, guiding, and inspiring others to rise above their limits.